Last week, I voted to fund Border Patrol and ICE. Since October of 2025, Democrats have refused to fund our nation's law enforcement on a continuing basis. They are back to their old defund the police narrative that they've pushed for years. They shut down the government for the longest period ever, 43 days. Then they caused multiple partial shutdowns that affected whether our law enforcement officers would be paid. Senate Republicans and the administration also attempted to find reforms to ICE that Democrats would agree to. Still, they wouldn't vote to fund law enforcement. Last week, I voted with my Senate Republican colleagues to fund Border Patrol and ICE. Democrats refused to join us. Yesterday, the House of Representatives passed the bill. Today, President Trump signed the bill into law. This is another example of Republicans delivering for Americans. We are committed to protecting our citizens and funding our law enforcement. That brings me to what I will be working on in the Senate this week. As we celebrate America's 250th anniversary, we must renew our support for America's farmers and ranchers. This year has already been a challenging one with widespread droughts, historic wildfires, and high input costs. We are also learning of new wildfires in the northwest part of our state. I'm grateful for the efforts of our brave first responders and local authorities, and I appreciate our governor taking the appropriate actions to be able to fight these fires. I encourage Nebraskans to listen to local guidance and evacuate if asked. My prayers remain with all the Nebraskans impacted by these fires. One of our other challenges we are now facing in ag has to do with one of the bright spots in our industry, the beef industry. As you know, we are the beef state. But this industry is being threatened by the New World screwworm. This parasite has been wiped out back in the 1960s, but now it's made its reappearance again with 6 cases, one involving a dog. These cases are in Texas and New Mexico. To resolve this, we will need to renew our efforts. I am sending a letter to our Ag Secretary, Brooke Rollins, to encourage her to expedite the steps we are taking to combat the New World screwworm. We combat this parasite by releasing sterile flies. Panama has the only production facility in North America and is dispersing approximately 100 million sterile flies a week. A sterile fly production facility in Mexico is on track to open this summer. Once operational, it will produce another 60 to 100 million sterile flies per week. There are 2 additional dispersing facilities in Mexico, with one releasing up to 100 million flies per week. USDA is dispersing 8 million flies a week in affected areas of Texas. The USDA is also investing $750 million in a sterile fly facility at Moore Air Force Base in Edinburgh, Texas. When operational, this facility will produce 300 million sterile flies a week. I appreciate the work Secretary Rollins and the USDA are doing to combat New World screwworm, and I will work with them to further these efforts. All of this is in addition to the funding for animal biosecurity and parasite mitigation programs that the Senate Republicans made possible in the Working Families Tax Cut Act last year. This legislation unlocked $233 million per year for USDA to spend on 3 different programs vital to animal health care. This is 7 times the funding that was available before. We're doing all this work to protect our strong ag industry across the country and especially in Nebraska. This week, I also introduced the Fencing Eligibility for New Conservation Equipment, or Fence Act. When the wildfires broke out, I toured burned pastures with Secretary Rollins and Governor Pillen to assess damages. We also brought Undersecretary of Agriculture Richard Fordyce to Nebraska. We listened to farmers and ranchers to hear more about how we can best assist their recovery and rebuilding efforts. A top concern was the need for greater flexibility, not red tape, during recovery. The USDA listened and loosened requirements for replacing fence posts damaged in the fires. My Fence Act builds on this flexibility. The legislation would allow for virtual fencing as an option for producers under the Emergency Conservation Program. It would also extend beyond livestock operations to areas like the Valentine National Wildlife Refuge. Past administrations have not freed up this land for grazing. I've worked with the Trump administration to allow grazing on this refuge. There's a variety of ways that we can help our farmers and ranchers rebuild. The Fence Act would allow for one more option. Last year, in the Working Families Tax Cut, we passed a lot of good law to help out our ag community. We made the death tax exemption permanent so that farmers and ranchers can pass their operations on to the next generation. Across the country, that means about $200 billion will be going to the next generation of farmers and ranchers, and not the government. We also updated reference pricing for the first time in 11 years. This has already helped our corn and soybean farmers this year. We also extended the 45Z clean fuel production credit to ag and ethanol producers. This credit raises demand for agricultural feedstocks and supports domestic biofuel production. This gives Nebraska renewable fuel producers more certainty. The Working Families Tax Cut also opened up an additional $285 million, double the amount of money for trade promotion, allowing farmers and ranchers to find new markets. And we strengthened the beginning farmer and rancher development benefit, extending the coverage from 5 years to 10. This year's Farm Bill will bring more certainty and more support and relief for farmers and ranchers. Earlier this year, I hosted the Ag Committee Chairman John Bozeman in Nebraska. This visit allowed Nebraskans to share their priorities directly with Senator Bozeman. Now that the House has passed its version of the Farm Bill, I am working with Senator Bozeman to find a way to bring Democrats along to support a Senate bill. The House bill passed actually included some of my bipartisan priorities, including the AFITA Improvements Act to combat Communist China from buying up American farmland. I am pushing for the inclusion of a few other bills as well. First, we want consumers to know that what they are buying at the grocery store. They should know that their food is real, high-quality ag products. We have seen a number of items out there that claim to be things that they are not. This hurts our farmers and ranchers who are producing the real things. I've got a couple of bills to address this, including my Fair Labels Act. This bill would make sure only real beef, not plant-based or cell-cultivated protein, is labeled as beef or meat. We also need to reform our SNAP program. Our federal program should run as well as Nebraska's did when I was governor. I've introduced a bipartisan proposal in the Senate to do just that. Lastly, E15. As I previously mentioned, we are looking at a variety of ways to get this done. I've been working with Senator Deb Fischer to build support and get this effort passed in the Senate. I've spoken with Leader John Thune, and it's an issue of importance to him as well. He understands how important this is for our farmers. We have a unique opportunity in the Senate and with the support of the President to get this done once and for all. Nebraska is an ag state. America's history is firmly rooted in agriculture. As we celebrate 250 years of our great nation, we must continue to support our farmers and ranchers. In the Senate, I'm doing just that.